Hey guys, Crave here, and here's a trilogy that is very important for many RPG fans and gamers. It's been more than 10 years since the release of the very first game where we are introduced to Commander Shepard and his epic story in our Milky Way galaxy. I personally love the trilogy and simply had to replay it to prepare for Andromeda. While it is clear that Andromeda is a fresh start of sorts for the Mass Effect universe, it's still a good idea to refresh oneself in preparation. This video will be a revisit of sorts, and it should be great for those who are getting into the Mass Effect universe for the very first time, or those who are thinking about buying Mass Effect Andromeda. I'll try to avoid spoilers for those who haven't played any of the three games, but I might touch on smaller ones, so that's your fair warning before I proceed. Now, the name of the series, Mass Effect, is very much key to why Shepard's again epic journey throughout the futuristic timeline of the Milky Way galaxy is made possible. In the future, humanity discovers the nature of Mass Effect fields. Now, the short of it is that this understanding, coupled with the fictitious element zero, enables the increase or decrease of an object's mass. This enables the creation of technology which advances human technology by leaps and bounds. Another important discovery is the location of the mass relay within the Sol system, our own solar system. This relay works pretty much like a teleporter where it needs another relay in order to quickly fling objects from one relay to another. This makes moving to different sections of the Milky Way galaxy in much quicker times possible as opposed to the standard light speed travel. The discovery of the relay opens humanity to other intelligent species, but we'll touch on that later. What I just mentioned is key to the Mass Effect trilogy because of the main plot that persists throughout. There is a looming threat to all life in the galaxy in the form of the Reapers. However, the Reapers have this limitation, well, I think it's a limitation, at least they impose upon themselves. They have this behavior where they only target the advanced species. It is also mentioned in the trilogy that the Reapers were aware of humanity's existence before and had chosen to ignore us in a previous purging. Humanity's understanding of the Mass Effect technology was a signal for the Reapers that humanity had become an advanced species and was ripe for the picking. That is the main plot of the trilogy. The very first game does a very RPG way of introducing Commander Shepard into his heroic role into the whole trilogy. It is decently paced, and that's mainly due to the history of the developer that worked on the trilogy. If you've heard of games like Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic, Neverwinter Nights, Dragon Age, you'll see two things in common. They're well-known RPGs, and they're made by BioWare. Finding a solution to the galaxy's problems isn't your only concern. As you explore the Milky Way galaxy through Commander Shepard, you encounter the different civilizations and cultures that humanity might not have ever discovered were it not for Mass Effect technology and the relays. You will find that other species also have their own concerns which are very similar to ours. They have concerns with politics, hidden agendas, prejudice, dangers of AI, and things of the sort. Now, some of the notable species are the Turians, who are well known for their military prowess in the galaxy, the Solarians, who are well known for their quick thinking, espionage capabilities, and unfortunately short-lived lives, and of course there is the Asari, which is the monogender long-lived species in the galaxy. There are other important species in the galaxy, but the three I just mentioned comprise the initial council leaders of the known parts of the galaxy. As a council, they stay in what is known as Citadel, or the Citadel structure, which is a gigantic structure which houses millions of different species with its own embassy offices for non-council races. It was actually the Asari who first put forward the idea and discovered the Citadel, and they put forward this idea that the council should be formed and represent the best interests of those within Citadel space. From this alone, it is very impressive that BioWare has made this sci-fi universe very possible in the gaming genre. When you look at mainstream culture, you think of Star Trek and Star Wars, and BioWare has created their story that is respectable on its own. In the trilogy, interactions are made very real via conversations or combat. Let's go into conversations. From personal recollection, this has been a major highlight in all of BioWare's games. The developer has gotten better and better and better at making sure your conversation picks carry some weight with either an immediate effect or a long-term consequence. Some of the long-term consequences can even carry on from the first game to the third. An example of this is seeing an ally fall in the third game depending on one key conversation you make in the first game. While veteran players of any kind of gaming genre might find it easy or sort of easy to steer Commander Shepard's story in a certain way, those who choose to get into a role player seat will find a very satisfying experience. It is through these conversations and decisions that you are also able to perhaps make situations easier, make merchants from shops offer you better prices.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite store on the Citadel.
And this also allows you to romance certain people in the game. It is this romance aspect, this smaller aspect of the trilogy, that caused many gamers some excitement and controversy on BioWare's part. In particular, one of the controversies was the limitations of romance options depending on your gender. And this really just put the spotlight on BioWare, and the developer was forced to make adjustments as the trilogy progressed. This signified some negativity on gamers in general by focusing so much on a sub-aspect of a game, but it is important that it should also be seen as how involved BioWare's fans are. This shows the level of, I would say, investment fans of the franchise had. But the most important part of the decision making and the conversations part is how you build your teams, which is integral to the trilogy. While Commander Shepard is considered the hero of the story, he or she could not have done it all on his own. Throughout the series, he is always accompanied by different people. While Commander Shepard has his or her own background you can slightly alter and you can make decisions for yourself, your allies in the trilogy have their own backgrounds you have to consider. It is important to build those relationships and build them well. Not only do they provide possible romance options or bonuses to your character, they are also sources of rich stories. Supporting them via conversations or any of their own personal missions can definitely affect them. The most evident of this is Mass Effect 2, where there is a key moment in the game where it makes you think about earlier decisions you made. In particular, this will involve a suicide mission where it could basically lead to multiple deaths for the unprepared. Taking care of your relationships with your allies carries so much weight that you'll find their value as the third part in the trilogy draws to a close. On the subject of the trilogy's end, admittingly it did stir up quite the controversy, which actually caused BioWare to provide a free download to expand on the original ending. It is highly recommended that you do download the extended content prior to the start of the Point of No Return mission. You'll know it once you get to that point. While it doesn't resolve how the ending could have been better fleshed out, the additional content does help. Another reason why you should be taking care of your allies is the combat benefit they provide. Aside from the story and interactions, Mass Effect is a very good third-person cover shooter. Well, it didn't really start out that way, but it definitely improved as we got to the last part of Shepard's story. As with BioWare's other RPGs, you had to take care of your equipment and upgrade them. You had to choose your skills and upgrade them. Now, the choices you made, or at least the choices you had to make in terms of gear and skills, aren't on the same level as, let's say, Neverwinter, but BioWare made it work somehow in this trilogy. This is especially evident in Mass Effect 1 and 3. Choosing the right weapons and talents greatly affected your playstyle. As mentioned, your companions became extremely important in combat situations. Combat in Mass Effect revolved heavily around gunplay, but there were other aspects that you had to pay attention to. You had to consider biotic powers, or powers that enabled interactions with Mass Effect fields in, of course, a much smaller scale. You had to consider technicians and synth units who worked heavily on technology. You had to worry about shields and other forms of protection, whether it was your protection or the enemy's protection. In higher levels of combat difficulty, bringing the right companions and gearing them properly made combat easier. The combat in Mass Effect is something that permeates throughout the series and achieved its, I would say best form in the third and last part. And those are the essential elements in the trilogy. Of course, there are more aspects in the Mass Effect series, but that would take too long to discuss, and I'm afraid I would be spoiling the content for you guys. I only outlined the things that I feel are important for things to be aware of before you get into Mass Effect Andromeda. And one more reason why I didn't spoil too much of the content in the original trilogy is that, well, if you haven't, I do highly recommend giving the original series, I would say giving it a shot. It's really worth your money. So, anyway, thanks for checking this out, guys. You got Crave here, and I'll talk to you soon.